know what really makes us mad is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose 1 year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. Patreon.com/punklotopod. For $1, you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio. Last week, we did a bracketology on the year 2002, where we pit albums from that year in head-to-head single elimination tournament. And we had a lot of fun with it. I love doing those. And 2002, man, that's a year. We'll get into that in a minute.
Well, they're all years, but yeah.
Since the last time we recorded on the main show, I got to see Teenage Fan Club. It was the first Teenage Fan Club show in the United States in 5 years. They were in Hall River Ballroom in Saxby Hall, which is right outside Carborough, Chapel Hill. And on the way in, walking to the venue through the crosswalk, some teens didn't stop for pedestrians and almost ran me and Jim Wilbur of Superchunk over in the crosswalk. So it would have been a great loss if we'd both been hit in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, if you had both died, it would have been Superchunk guitarist and punk podcaster
My name wouldn't even get mentioned.
killed in an accident. And then I have to carry the show on and
We're forever
in honor.
Forever entwined with Superchunk, though. So that you'd get into every Superchunk show for free, I bet.
I don't think that it's possible for there to be any Superchunk shows if Jim Wilbur
That is true. I don't think there would ever be another one.
was killed by a car. If Jim Wilbur was vehicular manslaughtered, because who could play those guitar parts? Mac doesn't know how to play them. I guarantee it's a Leatherface situation where I don't know what he's playing.
Yeah. So
very dark turn.
Yeah.
Jim Wilbur, please look both ways.
Yes.
It wouldn't have been your fault, but
No. But it was funny because as I walked up the sidewalk, I just happened to look behind me to see who was walking close. We were pretty close to me, honestly. I was like, who's this? And I was like, oh, hello, Jim Wilbur. I didn't actually say anything to him because, God, he would hate that. But I guarantee you he was like, fuck, black rimmed glasses, flannel shirt, going to see Teenage Fan Club. He knows who I am. In Chapel Hill area. Yeah.
He knows who. Yeah. He is.
Oh, fuck. Don't say anything to me, please.
I mean, he knows that everyone there knows who he is.
Yeah.
It's a Teenage Fan Club show.
Yeah. But he came through the front door. Meanwhile, Mac was already in the green room when we got there.
Yeah.
And he was also wearing his mask. Now, I believe he just was wearing his mask because he still takes COVID seriously. No one else does. But also, I'm like, you also probably like the benefit of just a little bit more anonymity than normal. But everybody sees that coif of hair there.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, hey, there's Mac.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mac has very distinguishable hair.
And he was carrying a Merge tote bag on his shoulder.
Yeah. Company man.
But it was a good show. It was a fun show. I did get stuck next to a man with long gray poodle hair who reeked of cigarettes and had terrible breath and wouldn't shut up and was a very notice me senpai type person whenever there was a lull between songs. And he they would play a new song and say, this is off of our new record. And then he would be like, yeah, great song. Clap, 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 clap before the song started. It's you're just trying to get noticed by the band. And they don't acknowledge him. They didn't acknowledge him once, which is
cool. You don't.
They acknowledged a couple people, but not him.
Yeah. No, you don't. You don't
acknowledge. Don't feed the trolls. He was a filmmaker, is what he said.
Mm-hmm. 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 He makes short films. He'll probably have something screening at River Run this year.
But yeah, the set was great. It's very heavy on the last two records because, like I said, the last time they were here was 5 years ago, and then they put two albums out So none of these songs had ever been played in the United States before. Well, a couple, like 2 maybe. I think they had played them when they were here last time before the record came out. But the last time they played in the United States was also in Sex Ball. That was the last stop on that tour and the first stop on this one. So
that's funny.
They bookended it. I guess they were like, where was the last place we were at? Okay, we'll go there. And
so they were reverse direction for the route this time.
Yeah.
Because they're coming to LA in 2 weeks. I need to buy a ticket. Just traded shifts with someone to make sure that I was off because I forgot to ask off. Looking forward to that. I am glad that I like the new records.
Oh yeah, right.
and I am also glad that I have seen them before.
Yeah.
When they didn't have a bunch of new records to play on, because I won't be disappointed in the set list.
Yeah, because the last time they were here, I actually did look at the set list, and it was just a good mix from pretty much every record. And even when they their newest record was here, they still probably only played like 2 songs off of here. So like that was like ideal if you wanted to hear like more old stuff. And I bet too, if they come back soonish, some of these will fall off the set list and it'll be a little bit more rounded out. But because like I said, they'd never played them here, that they just wanted to play them on this tour, which is fair. And then Pylon Reenactment Society opened. It was wild. So like they had weird doors. Like doors were like 6:45, and the first band started at like 7:15. I got there at like 7:40. The opener, Cordelux, was already gone, and Pylon's stuff was being set up. And I honestly thought I had just gotten there too early, or they started late, and the opener was about to play, and then then I'm like, oh, this is Pylon. So that first band must have played like a 15-minute set and then got their shit out of there like right away. It was weird, but Pylon were really fun. I didn't know the songs as well. I also think it was mainly newer stuff, so I don't know. I don't know what the set was like, but they're really fun to watch. I texted you this at the show, and I was like, oh, the lead singer of Pylon looks like somebody's Georgia Meemaw. Like she just is like a older Southern lady. She's probably in her 60s, right? You know, she would have been in Pylon in the 70s. And she has a very thick Southern accent too, which is, I love hearing that. And especially in that kind of music, you don't think of Southern accents with chilly post-punk. But yeah, she seemed very funny. Like she seemed very dry sense of humor, but everybody else just smiling the whole time. They're fun, really fun. If they ever come near you, definitely worth checking out. Yeah, and it was just a great show. Very happy with. I knew it was gonna be heavy on new stuff, so I wasn't really like. I knew what I was coming into. I think that's important to know. Like if you'd never seen Teenage Fan Club on this tour and you didn't know they were playing the 2 new records extensively, I could see you being really disappointed. But they're good. They're really fun. These songs are great too. I actually like them a lot better live too. So really fun, really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. So hopefully you get to see them soon.
Yeah, I just need to buy a ticket. I have the day off already now, so I just gotta buy a ticket.
Yeah, portable tour, $25 to see them here. So probably a little higher where you are, but still.
They're not bad. I want to say they're probably about the same price. I think they're $30. Yeah, $30 here. So well worth it.
Oh yeah. Honestly, it seemed like they undervalue themselves here, but I don't know. It wasn't really sold out either, so I don't know. Maybe not. Well, let's get into the show. So I assigned you the year 2002. The last time we discussed 2002, we did it way back in episode 211, and that was the Joey Ramone Christmas Spirit in My House. That was our Christmas episode. Before that is at 195, Thrice's The Illusion of Safety, which was a Patreon-sponsored episode by our friend Brian. Then 154, we had the Roustabouts, the only one, which was another Patreon-sponsored record. That was sponsored by Dave Brown of One Band 5 Songs, who now has his own Patreon. Oh, I can plug this. He has his own Patreon now, One Band 5 Songs. And I did an interview with Dave over there. And it's just a really fun conversation we had. So check that out. Also, episode 93, we covered Common Writers' This Is Unity Music along with the hosts of the Checkered Cast podcast. That was one of our Skogest episodes. Then episode 65, we did Hot Rod Circuits, Sorry About Tomorrow, as well as Friends Rust's A Young Trophy Band in the Parlance of Our Times, where we got the lead singer of As Friends Rust to call his legion of fans on us. I'm not sure what that was about. He said, "These guys said we're new metal. I don't know about that." And then the comments were just like, "These guys are idiots."
It had new metal qualities.
Yeah. It was rap rock.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
We did that with James Toomey of Where the Living Room Used to Be podcast. That show is still going. And way back in episode 18, My Chemical Romances. I brought you my bullets. You brought me your love. As well as Death from Above 1979's EP, where we discovered they had Proud Boy connections in the middle of the episode.
Yeah.
Like, yikes. Don't want to. I think we bailed on the we were like, all right, we're done.
Yeah. Yeah, dump it.
So really, in 2002, we've gone gimmick episode, Patreon sponsored episode, gimmick episode, then 2 regulars. So we haven't done a ton with 2002 where it was, our choosing. And when I gave you the year, you were like, there's a lot to pull from here.
Yeah. I sent you, did I send you 4 or 5? I don't remember.
I think it was 5, maybe 5 counting the one we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cause I had taken a screenshot of the, page 99 majority rule split, which we discuss on the bracket.
Right.
But I was like, well, and then I think I noticed that Emergency Numbers was the same year. So I sent you that. I did send you a majority rule record to consider, which, man, that's a record. That is one of the absolute best screamo records of all time. Just dark and brooding, intense. It's really not possible to compare them to anyone. Page 99 being like the closest thing to that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they don't really sound that much alike, though.
Yeah, maybe Gospel. That could be pretty close, but I love that record. I love that Majority Rule record. I truly do. Like, I think it's incredible. It's a 5-star album. Like, if I were to introduce someone to screamo, like it's on the short list. It's like, you got to hear this. Like, there's certainly some classic bands that are just like, maybe not the best, but it's like, this is pretty important. You got to hear it. But like, this is one where it's like, this is one of the best you'll ever hear from this genre. But as much as I love it, I think I passed on it because there was just enough of a question mark about what we would say about the record and about the band. Because, I mean, there's definitely kind of the room to talk about, them playing reunion shows and having No Man, and and you could get into like the connections of that scene, and I think you could probably talk about that scene in general, because I think the Richmond screamo scene and really that whole Virginia screamo post-hardcore scene is like exactly my wheelhouse.
Yeah,
but I was just like the band itself, I don't know how much there is to say. They kind of were just a band that existed and then they didn't. And some of them maybe played in some other bands, but that's kind of it. So I passed on that one. I sent you Silence by the Swedish Christian post-hardcore hard rock band Blindside. And I was pretty close on that one, actually. Like, I wouldn't even call it a Sinister Urge. Like, I think that's a good record. I still think that's a good record. I listened to some of it maybe like last year. I think it auto-played after something we were listening to for the show. And I was like, whoa, this is good. This holds up. And so that one could be, I was very close on that one because there's definitely the personal connection of being really one of the first bands, one of the first bands with screaming in it that we liked. Very, very important to us early on, getting into heavier music. A band with a few really good to great records, and Silence would be the one. Like, it is the best one. It's the most commercially successful one.
Yeah. There's a lot to say about
the
following record, About a Burning Fire, because that record's really good too. Very interesting record. And A Thought Crossed My Mind, there's a lot to say about that record too, but the music's a little bit more kind of one-notey, very Swedish hardcore sounding album. This one's like the nice sweet spot of them trying to go for a more commercial thing. They were buddies with the band POD, and they got signed to a major. through their connections. Like they use the same producer as POD. They're like in the Here Comes the Boom music videos, the Swedish ping pong team.
Yeah.
And like I remember seeing Blindside play on Conan O'Brien
Yeah.
in support of this record. So like, yeah, this was like kind of their biggest footprint in the US. The one to talk about for sure.
Silence is a really good record. Like, I think
Yeah.
it is genuinely a great record. I would have had a lot of fun listening to it and talking about it. It would have been a total nostalgia kick, and I think it would have been an interesting one to talk about. It's definitely one I will consider in the future if I were to ever pick 2002 again.
Yeah.
Which that could be 2-3 years from now. So
Yeah.
who knows? We'll see. But yeah, that's a good sweet spot of dumb rock post-hardcore. I don't know. I think it's fun. I was pretty close on considering Hot Snake's Suicide Invoice. Yeah, I don't know if this is a controversial opinion or not. This is my favorite Hot Snakes record. I think maybe people prefer the one after it, Audit in Progress.
Do they? I don't know what people think.
I don't know
the rankings of the Hot Snakes discography, because honestly, that's another band with like I'd say a borderline perfect discography as far as studio albums are concerned. You know?
Yeah. I mean, just 4 records, a great comeback record.
Yeah, there's another example of a comeback record that's great. Though, do they count as a comeback record if they like played throughout the time period? That's been a topic that's been bouncing around in my head lately. Is like people say like, you know, Majesty Shredding was Superchunk's comeback record, but they never broke up. They played shows throughout that time period. Just like maybe less touring was like the main thing. So is it it's not a reunion record. It's
I feel like if it's 10 years or more between your studio albums, I would say it's a comeback record. Definitely depends on the context. Like if you break up or you officially go on hiatus, then like anything else you do after that is a comeback record, even if it's the year after.
Yeah. The band we're talking about today technically is one of those kind of. I don't think they officially broke up, but
like a Hot Water Music. Oh, we broke up and then the next day we reunited.
yeah.
Suicide Invoice. Fuck, man, that's such a good record. Ultimately, I passed on it because I feel like Rick passing away, like it just would make it too sad of an episode to talk about a full record.
It's a weird balance because it's like you want to pay homage to someone, but also you're like, but I don't want to be too sad.
But I listened to Suicide Invoice yesterday because I was like, fuck it, I want to listen to some of these records that I considered, and there's so much good shit on that record. So much of my favorite Hot Snakes material is on there. I just think, God, that whole man. Looking at this track listing, I Hate the Kids. Gar Forgets His Insulin. XOX. Who Died? Oh man, Suicide Invoice. Paid in Cigarettes. I have always loved that song. I'm just like, this is so good. The lyrics in the song are so good. How do you come up with that idea? And LAX is, that's an all-time classic. Yeah. Suicide Invoice is my favorite. And kind of eliminated this one early, but I did consider Second Stage Turbine Blade by Coheed, but we had done the second album, which I actually picked, I'm pretty sure. So it's like, all right, I already picked the best Coheed record once already. I don't need to pick the second best Coheed record. But I did re-listen to that. I did listen to Second Stage Turbine Blade yesterday as well, and that's such a fun record.
Yeah, that record's great. Like you're right. It's probably still the second best. Like the third album is probably the one that's like, okay, this is the quintessential Coheed record. Like it's when they like really went all in on the prog angle. But the first two are just my favorite. Like they're just so much fun to listen to. This one too. Like this one's like scrappy. Which is not what you think of with Coheed. Coheed's not a scrappy band. Coheed's a big production band. And it's just fun to hear those like early rough songs where it's like, man, that guitar sounds like so weak and wimpy sounding.
I really like the rawness of that record too. It does give it a certain charm of like, you are thinking so big. Like you are thinking so far beyond the means of recording, and you're still communicating that idea. And I understand why you go in the direction that you go with the production of Coheed Records. Like, it's a no-brainer. Like, when you have the budget, you're gonna spend it on getting those massive sounds. But like, it's cool to see something so well thought out and so big and so clearly meant to be bigger than it is recorded that way. And it still works. I think it works great. It's super fun, super catchy, memorable guitar riffs. You know, it doesn't feel too burdened by the concepts of the records.
Yeah, like some of the later albums do. I do think if we were going to do another Coheed record, we probably should do something a little later to really examine that portion of their career. But yeah, I love this record, and I it's one I go back to it a lot. And every time I do, I'm like, man, it's so good. It's so fun and good. Yeah.
I think of those first two Coheed records, and I'm just like, somebody should do this.
That thing, like that big idea, small production.
Yeah, that technical proggy post-hardcore with just that little bit of rawness.
Yeah. I mean, there were people around the time doing similar things.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely fits. I think it even, honestly, like the Coheed record fits in some ways with the record we're talking about.
Yeah. I think of them as very similar. They're connected. I wouldn't say they're necessarily the exact same thing, but yeah, they definitely are connected by like time and place. 2002 is also worth mentioning just to give you an idea of what else was going on in the grander world of music. Interpol, Turn on the Bright Lights. Good for them. We also discussed
turn off the record.
We discussed quite a few albums from 2002 on our bracketology episodes, so head over to the Patreon if you want to hear more of those. So I won't really name those specifically, but And You Know Us by the Trail of Dead, Source Tags and Codes, Avril Lavigne's Let Go.
Yes.
Self-Titled Orchid, Taking Back Sundays, Tell All Your Friends, Glassjaw's Worship and Tribute. Very important record that has not aged well.
Yeah. Have you seen the clips of Taking Back Sunday at Coachella?
Yeah. What was that? What was the deal with that?
I want to break it down to man.
He can't sing anymore, right? Like, his voice is dead.
Yeah, well, he can't do that. I mean, because he never should have been doing that to begin with.
Yeah.
That's not going to last long. You can't sing like that for very long. But they're kind of notoriously bad live now at this point. I've seen comments on those videos, which, like, I heard that and I'm like, this sounds kind of rough, but like, I truly wouldn't expect him to be able to do that anymore. So, I mean, like, my expectations would be very low for those songs, but they're also just kind of, I think, known for being really sloppy live, and just, it seems like they're just drinking all the time. They go on tour and like relive their, glory days, and they don't really give a shit.
That band had a lot of turnover too. They lost a lot of goodwill that they had earned. They just kind of like fizzled, yet stayed a band, which is the weird part. Slater Kinney's One Beat, Against Me's Reinventing Axl Rose. That's actually probably might be the most important record on this list. It's very important record. Launched one of the biggest punk bands of all time.
Yeah. Began the career of the latest legacy punk legend.
Would you think they're like the newest legacy act?
That's like the wave,
right?
Of bands. Hot Water Music, Against Me,
Glen Trio, Strike Anywhere, like all those predate Against Me. I guess it depends on. Yeah, I don't know. There could be someone I'm not thinking of, but they might be the.
I'm just trying to think of people who have entered the punk pantheon.
Yeah.
Post Against Me. Because I don't think someone like Lauren from The Measure and Warriors is quite there yet.
Yeah.
Just because I don't think Warriors has reached the status that I think they could have, and maybe they won't. I don't know.
Yeah, and like Jeff Rosenstock doesn't feel like he's there yet. He's close, but not quite.
Yeah.
Like AJJ again, close, but not quite.
Yeah.
Off with Their Heads maybe could have, but I feel like they kind of fizzled too.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. That may be. I don't know. Menzingers. I think Menzingers. Are they there yet?
Maybe. Almost. I
don't know what the line is though.
Not anymore. Not any more so than Jeff Rosenstock or AJJ or even Gaslight Anthem.
I think Gaslight might actually be in it.
Yeah,
now.
I mean they at least went to major label status in their initial run. So
Gaslight might be the one, and Pup I think could be the one eventually, but they still feel like they're kind of in their prime right now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, 2002, very good year. This is a year that I think we could go forever on. So. Let's get into the actual record we're talking about today. So I gave you the year 2002, and you selected We Are the Only Friends That We Have by Piebald.
Andy went back to school. He got sick of Newberry comics. Aaron still rides a lot, except now he's just fatter. Alex took over for Alex Van Halen after his major surgery. John, well, he got married to Laura, and I teach that kid in first grade. Thought I saw you on the road last night. I need to get my eyes checked. Can't believe I love something as yellow as you. He's gone, so deal with it, man. But wait, after all, you did get us across the world and back. Weren't you parked at the station? My mind is playing tricks on me. Can't believe I love something as yellow as you. He's gone, so deal with it, man. But wait, after all, you did get us across the world and back. We left you in a Carolina.
Stats on the band. Formed in 1994 from Andover, Massachusetts. This was released February 19th, 2002 on Big Wheel Recreation Records. And the person on this record is Aaron Stewart on guitar, Andrew Bonner on bass, John Sullivan on drums, and Travis Shuttle on guitar and vocals. And the album was produced by Paul Q. Calder, who was a Boston area producer, who produced albums by the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, the Lemonheads, Uncle Tupelo, Firehose, Radiohead, Hole, and Warren Zevon.
Whoa.
These are just the produced ones, and then like engineered stuff by the Pixies and like so many other people too. Big name producer there in the Boston area. So yeah, we'll get into more about the backstory and all that stuff later. But as usual, what made you choose this album for us to talk about?
It is a classic. Is it a classic? Can we call this a classic? To me, it's a classic.
It's a classic to me and all my friends. So
yeah, I love this record. I think it is super fun. I think every song on it is a greatest hit. I mean, like everything on here is memorable. They could have released every single record as a single. I mean, every single song on here as a single. Like it's it's wall to wall. And I go back pretty far with it. It was definitely one of the first. It was one of the ones that jumped out to me as soon as I saw it. I was like, ooh, yeah, that's one to talk about. Which I guess we have briefly talked about it in our 100 and 100.
We have, which was now 180 episodes ago. We referenced that episode a lot, but
Yeah, we devoted 1 minute to discussing this record in it.
I do like that idea. And I have thought, I'm like, we probably should have done that like every 100 episodes, just done like 100 more. But
How many episodes are we?
we're at 280, I believe, is what this episode is.
Should we do a 330?
It could be like 100 more and 100 more minutes. Right? I don't know.
Yeah, my reasons for picking this record are why would I not? Almost. I mean, it's such a great record, and it goes back really far for both of us. I think I cannot tell you when I started listening to Piebald.
I was trying to think of when that was. I definitely, the first time I ever heard Piebald was on a Warped Tour compilation. Jealous Guy Blues was on the 2004 Warped Tour comp. And then I think there's a couple more tracks on the following years. I'd probably heard like 3 songs from them, which would have been from like their last 2 records at the time. So that would have been my introduction to them. I don't know exactly when I decided to listen to this record for the first time. It may have been in college. It might be one of those ones where it was on someone else's iTunes, and like you could do that thing where you steal music from other people's iTunes at the time. We were stealing everything, and we wonder why like music is like not paying the bills for anybody anymore.
Completely devalued. Well, yeah. I mean, capitalism is evil, and nothing should be worth anything. Everything should be free. That's my anarchist excuse for not buying things. I own this record.
I do too. Yeah, I bought it.
It's the box set. It's the 3 LP box set that I got from Record Store Day. One of the like 2 or 3 years that I cared at all about Record Store Day.
Yeah.
I came after the store had already opened because I didn't realize that people like camped out for that shit. And I just kind of waited in like a line for 15 minutes, and then I walked right over to the P's and I went yoink. I just like reached over someone's shoulder. I was like, there it is.
I think me, Grant from Bitter Melody, and our other friend, I think we grabbed all the copies that they had at our record store because we waited in line, and like we got there. We didn't just camp out, but we got there early, and it was one of those things where it's like yoink, that's for me, and we probably got them all. There may have been more like held back, just for space reasons, but
yeah.
Did
you each get one, or did Grant get like 3?
No, we all just got one.
Still has them.
No, I think we only got one because it was like for a 3 LP thing, it was like $35, which really now I'm like, God, that's how much a single LP is in a lot of places. But thanks, majors. But yeah, so I think probably in college is when I first heard this album in full, and I had some college friends who really, really liked this record too, and so like we all kind of bonded over this album specifically too. Funny, like nobody else had the other stuff. I don't think the other records around the time, and I probably downloaded them later. But this was the one. This was the, for better or worse, the best record in the discography. Some hipsters will say the first record is, but it's a great record. It's not the best record. But yeah, that would have been the beginning there. I got into Piebald. We used to have we were metalheads as like teenagers, so we had a little bit of a no emos rule. We just like, I don't like emo because we just didn't like what My Chemical Romance and The Used, because that's all that
but
Fuse was showing.
But we also listened to like Dead Poetic.
Yeah, right.
We just didn't like those bands. And we thought we didn't like an entire genre of music.
Yeah. But Piebald was one of the first bands, along with Coheed Cambria, that I got into that you could very much say are an emo band. Now, both of these bands sound very different from most of their contemporaries, but they were the gateway that kind of like got me through the door of being like, oh, okay, this whole genre isn't bad.
Oh, emo.
Yeah. So yeah, and then from there, just like listen to the last 3 records primarily. Like it took me forever to get to the first 2, despite people like saying that those were the better records. But yeah, that's our I guess our backstory with the band Piebald. I had a burn CD in my car and I played it all the time. It was always on. This is a record I know every word to. It's one of those albums, an all-time favorite.
I was curious to see how far back they show up in my last FM scrobbling, and it's like September of 2008.
Yeah.
So I probably like downloaded it. Then after having heard it, I was just like, oh, I don't have that Piebald record.
Yeah.
And then like listened to it 3 times that month. Yeah, I listened to Piebald a ton in college. I do distinctly remember that being the most intense period of listening to Piebald. But like I would definitely dip into their discography off and on for a good 10 years or more. Probably about 10 years. With some years just being like maybe I listened to one record that year. But I have long held that this record is an all-time record for me, a classic record, a best of the genre type of record. Though I guess at the end of the day, we say emo, and I would broadly categorize it as emo, but it's kind of so unique in what he does with emo, and you can definitely make your cases for like the Braid and Promise Ring and even Sunny Day Real Estate, influences and similarities. I think the closest you get to exactly what Piebald is probably like something to write home about, like the Get Up Kids, in terms of how insanely poppy it is.
Maybe Motion City Soundtrack.
Yeah, which I would
memory.
Yeah, I would say Motion City Soundtrack is just a direct continuation of the Get Up Kids.
Yeah.
More so than the Get Up Kids records that came after.
Yeah. There's a Weezer element here. There's a little bit of that power poppy thing going on, the nerd rocker stuff. There's a little Ben Folds, like the piano rock thing is in this record. Becomes even more evident on the next two. But I read an interview with Travis around this time, and like someone did ask him, they're like, what do you call Piebald's music? And they were like, emo. Like they just flat out were like, we're emo.
Yeah.
I don't think they would have considered the previous records necessarily emo, but this one they definitely were. And also he said that his three biggest influences, at least at this point, were, what was number one? God, I just had it in my head. I literally just had it in my head of what number one was. Number two was Superchunk, Here's Where the Strings Comes In. Number three was Fugazi's Red Medicine, I think, was the one. Oh, literally had it in my brain a second ago, and now it's gone. But let's see if Braid's was it Frame and Canvas, I think maybe was the one he said. But yeah,
that would probably be the one. Superchunk, until listening to this record for this episode, I never made the connection to their influence.
Yeah.
And I was listening to this record and I'm like, whoa, there's way more Superchunk on here than I remembered. Like there's so much like Superchunk. There's so much Cars, power pop.
Yeah, he said like I've borrowed more from those records than I would care to admit. Like massively influential.
You got a window in the basement. You got a perfect view, but you don't care. Have you ever seen the things that go on outside? You gotta go to your apartment so you can step outside and see the sights. That looks like donut if you look at it right. You just might sleep yourself to death. Yeah, guts will spill onto your bed. Yeah, I've got a windowsill that I mentioned earlier, where you can rest your chin. Yeah, there also is a seat that I've heard exists somewhere for the perfect rest. Yeah, got a window in the basement. You've got a perfect view, but you don't care. Have you ever seen the things that go on outside? You got a door to your apartment, so you can step outside and see the signs. That looks like donut if you look at it right. It's just a simple plan to keep you awake. It's just a simple plan to keep you awake. No matter what I try, your eyeballs seem to hide.
Let's get into the backstory a little bit. So when they initially formed, they were a hardcore band. They started out as just a hardcore band. They were from Andover. They were out of the exact same scene that also had Converge and Cave In. Travis said he was at the first Cave In show. And then like Jake Bannon was a little older than them. I think they all went to the same high school. And Jake was a little older than them, but Jake was very like supportive of them. And he said that like he gave them all like tons of great like influence and like boosted them all, or great, advice, and was a big fan of the, supporting them. So they started as a hardcore band. Then they evolved their sound into more of a post-hardcore sound. And then they released their first 2 records, When Life Hands You Lemons, and If It Weren't for Venetian Blinds, It Would Be Curtains for Us All, which are both more post-hardcore, but there's definitely emo in there, of course. And I couldn't get a really clear explanation of what happened. It seemed like they took a break for a period there. And I think King of the Road, the opening track, actually is telling the story somewhat of kind of what happened. We went back to school. Like Travis became like a teacher in like a preschool. They got, their drummer leaves the band after the record is recorded. I think it was it was kind of a hiatus. I don't think it was a full breakup. I think it was more of a, let's take a break because we've been touring a lot and playing a lot. So let's, somewhat settle down. The got sick of working at Newberry Comics line is a direct reference to one of the members who worked at Newberry Comics, and he went back to school because he got tired of working there. So that song is kind of what tells you what happened between the record and this one. So there was somewhat of a hiatus, though. I don't think it was like a real breakup or anything like that. And so they get back together, they start writing these songs, and then they start working with Paul Q. Colder. And just the production is a huge leap from the previous record to this one. Like, this record is slick. It sounds huge. And weirdly, they were still on this label, Big Wheel Recreation, which was a small indie. I was like, what is this label?
It's like Jejune is the only other thing you know.
Yeah, the Jejune Jimmy Eat World split. And they had the vinyl rights to Clarity. Because remember when Jimmy Eat World was on DreamWorks with Clarity? Whichever label they were on. They worked it out where they could do vinyl wherever they wanted, because a lot of bands were able to do that during that period because vinyl wasn't really that big of a deal at the time. And so they're like, yeah, whatever, we don't care, and just let these small indies press the vinyl for them. So if someone has an old vinyl copy of Clarity, then that's probably the Big Wheel Recreation. And yeah, it's not much else. Piebald is like the other big band that they had. Not a big label, but they did weirdly have some like Hives singles before they kind of blew up in the States too. Strange what they had, but
yeah, going back to Piebald being a hardcore thing, there are some classic flyers from that scene where it's like, I'm looking at one right now that says that's Converge, Bane, Piebald, and Cave In. And they played with Cave In a bunch.
Yeah.
They played with Bane a few times. There's one that's like Bane, Piebald, Cave In, 10-yard fight. Reach the Sky, Close Call. Yeah, I've always thought those were funny because it's like, it's those classic flyers that you see where it's like fucking Converge, Cave In, Botch, Piebald. You're like, what? Why is the emo band there? But then it's like, oh no, that's right, they were a hardcore band.
Yeah, I've heard some of that early stuff, and it fits. That early stuff fits with the those shows. I do also think it's very funny that it's like, all right, Cave In's like the best at this, and then like Piebald or Converge is the best at this, and then Piebald and Cave In were like, all right, we got to figure out our deal. What's our deal? What's our angle? And then Cave In's like, we'll be space rock, and then Piebald's like, we'll be nerd emo. Like, they just went in all three completely different directions. And then Bane is like, we'll be tough guy hardcore.
Yeah, we'll just be straightforward hardcore.
Yeah,
until we die.
And this album wound up doing well for an indie, but it got decent distribution. They had videos on MTV, like there's videos for King of the Road and American Hearts were on MTV. They got radio play, like college radio play. So like this was their biggest exposure to the wider world. After that, they get a deal with Side One Dummy, and they do their 2 albums for Side One Dummy. And yeah, so like this
Piano Rock is the gimmick for meeting the requirement for Sidewit Nummy at that time.
Yeah. And this, I don't know, this record's just brilliant. You know, you said it's like wall to wall bangers, or like every song could have been a single, and it's just, I listened to it, and it's one of those records that like I've listened to so many times that like it was one of those ones where it's like, I don't even have to listen to this to be able to talk about it. Like, I know this record that well, but of course I did, because, you know, I feel like I should at least have like a fresh listen before I record, which I listened to it 2 times before we recorded this. But there is a thing, though, because it's so familiar to me and something I have heard so many times, is actually really hard to like pay close attention. It's one of those weird things where like it kind of just drifts to the back of your mind, but you're like singing along with it too. You're mindlessly singing along with it too. So it's hard to like laser in on like, okay, what is happening in the song? Like, what are they playing? You know, that's always, when you know a record so well, it's tough to kind of get in there.
Yeah, it's not hitting you with the what is unique about it, because it's not unique to you anymore. You've heard it so many times. So familiar. It's been a little while since I've listened to this record. I think pretty decent stretch of time since I've listened to this record.
I listened to it last year in the car with our younger brother on the way to a show.
Because I think the most recent I listened to, if it weren't for Venetian Blinds, most recently by them, it's been quite a few years actually since I've actually listened to this record, and which even with that time off, like I could sing you every one of these songs.
Yeah,
looking at the song title, but putting it on, which, like I said, like picking up on that Superchunk influence this time so much more prominently. It's like I was listening to Superchunk a lot the last time I listened to this Piebald record, but it's just that continuation of having been listening to Piebald, and then it just wasn't as obvious then, because I was still hearing what I associated with them from the first time that I listened to them, or, you know, a lot of the emo stuff that I got into in college when I was listening to Piebald a lot, and I wasn't listening to Superchunk, and I wasn't really that familiar with what power pop is, you know. Didn't really know any Teenage Fan Club records, you know?
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice to come back to something so familiar. And it was also really nice to come back to something so familiar and get a little bit of a surprise out of it. But also nice to come back to something so familiar and it's every bit as good as you remember it. Because so often you can listen to something really intensely. I mean, a lot of the stuff we talk about on the bracket, it's like I overexposed myself to some of this stuff. And a lot of stuff from this time period is like that. That when you've listened to it so intensely for a long time, especially, and you stop listening to it and you come back to it, you're like, oh, this is kind of disappointing. I really wanted to enjoy this more. Like, I was really kind of looking forward to it, and it's not that good. To put this on and just be stoked the whole time and really plugged into it. Yeah.
Yeah, like, this is one of those records, like, the first note, I'm just like, hell yeah. King of the Road. Just a great way to start the record off. Like I said earlier, it's kind of telling the story between Venetian Blinds and this record, you know, what they were up to. And it's just an amazing song with a great chorus, a great hook.
I mean, that opening riff.
Oh, no.
That's so fucking good. That's a riff I will go to my grave wishing I could have come up with. Like, that's...
And they did a really cool thing too. Like, they start the song with the riff and then it like drops off into this like soft little verse where Travis is sweetly singing like the backstory and the line about, you know, we left you in a Carolina, which I always thought it was funny. They mentioned Carolinas twice on this record, King of the Road and American Hearts. And they also say a Carolina in both of them, because I guess these Boston boys can't tell the difference between North and South Carolina.
We went to the Carolinas.
No one calls it that.
The Keys.
There's a big difference in these two states.
Yeah, one of them is full of culture and, you know, great cities, beautiful coastline, mountains, and the other one sucks. Like, you know, one of them is if you took the Jersey Shore and made it shittier, That's the beach.
That's Myrtle Beach.
Swamps
Mm-hmm.
is the rest of the coast. And a lot of nothing.
Confederate
And-
flags over the governor, over the Capitol building. Not
And,
anybody
like,
took them down, but
a teeny tiny bit of mountains.
yeah, not a lot. Like just because of where they are, the way the state is drawn. Like Georgia gets way more mountains than South Carolina does.
I guess you get half of Carowinds.
You do. That's pretty awesome. You get half of Carowinds. You get that racist south of the border thing. Truck stop.
I think owned by a Latino family now. If I'm mistaken.
Weird.
Maybe. I don't know. I could be making that up. Yeah,
Inferior-
roadside kitsch, problematic stuff.
Inferior barbecue.
Oh,
A
yeah.
mustard base? What are
Mustard?
you doing? Mustard? And every time you see like these like mass produced like Carolina style sauces, it's always the mustard based South Carolina sauce. And I'm like, you can't call this Carolina style. Say
Yeah.
it's South Carolina style.
Yeah,
but-
you got on the branding somehow.
Okay. Our north-south rivalry.
It's plainly obvious.
Just drive over the line from North to South Carolina, and it'll be like
Oh, shit.
the roads are broken and full of potholes. Like, what is this?
That's what you get with your Republican government.
No helmets. The motorcycle rule. They sell fireworks there.
Yeah.
You used to have to go get lottery tickets there. What else? No car inspections. That's nice to know. No car inspections, huh?
Cheaper gas, though.
Yeah, they don't tax as much on gas. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not worth driving to South Carolina to get a tank of gas.
No, you only do it if you're close or you're gonna be there anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, you're part of it. Yeah, you're part of it. Hey, you're part of it. Yeah, you're part of it. I walk the streets of a Carolina, watching people pushing shopping carts. And there's a guy above me, and he's washing windows, making $10 a pop. And he says to me, hey, you're part of it. Yeah, you're part of it. Hey, you're part of it. Yeah, you're part of it.
Anyway, this record has like 4 bangers in a row. Like it's goes from King of the Road into Just a Simple Plan, which is also one of the best songs on this record too. It's a really, really fun song with like a kids' children choir singing at the start. You have bongos in there. Wah. Really fun. Then it's American Hearts, which is like their anthem. Their past, their, what do you call it? When it's their legacy. Their song. This song is their legacy. Funnily, it's not a happy song. It's actually a negative song. And I remember watching, is it Polar Bear Club used to do a cover of this? Yes, they did.
Was it Polar Bear Club?
Yeah. They used to do a
Maybe it was
cover
like
of
O
it.
Pioneers or something.
They did one for Under the Influence,
Yeah.
but Polar Bear Club did it live. And I remember watching the video for Polar Bear Club performing it, and they're like, well, this isn't a happy song. Let's all sing it like it is. And everyone who listens to it and sings along to it does. Like, everybody just like sings it positively, even though it's not necessarily like what the song was intended to be.
If you say hey with the right intention to the right person,
Yeah.
their response is, you're part of it.
Yeah. And I remember Polar Bear Club like played the Atlantic at Fest one year, and everyone was yelling at them to play American Hearts. And they were like, no, we only have so much time and we're not going to play somebody else's song. It's like, oh, cool. You mean a song that everyone is instantly going to love and get on their feet for? You don't want to play that one because it's not yours? Okay. Then don't ever play it live. Then why ever play it live? If you're like, are you trying to sell us copies of your record? Is that what it is? I don't know. It's a weird like thing to be like, no, we only play our songs because we're only in here for 20 to 30 minutes. Weird. No wonder nobody likes Polar Bear Club after the first record.
I mean, he destroyed his voice.
Yeah. Well, that was the third record. They nobody liked the second record where he still sounded the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could yell. I think you could sing American Hearts by Piebald at Fest, just like in a crowd of people, and everyone would sing along. Like it's the scene in Pee-wee's Big Adventure where he's like, the stars at night are big and bright. And everyone goes, deep in the heart of Texas.
And we did see Piebald at Fest play American Hearts.
We did. We saw them in Saxoball too.
Yeah, we did. That was Saxoball, yeah. Funny that that's this episode. Yeah. But then they get into Long Nights, which that's where you're cool down. We're cooling down track 4.
Yeah. Okay. Also, sequencing note. Rock, rock, rock. Like, first 3 songs, they didn't fuck up. They just kept that energy building. Then they cool down.
Which, yeah, it's a cool down. It's a more piano heavy song. But even then, it's got a great hook. And it builds too. It starts slow with the piano, but then it goes back to full band.
Yeah, it's got the
When I used to listen to it in my car, Fear and Loathing in Cape Cod was really my cool down. Like, we've pumped the brakes for real on this song. And that song I used to not actually like that song very much. And over time it really, really grew on me. And like now it's like part of it, you know? Like, I would not remove that track because then we turn into The Monkey versus the Robot, which is another all-timer Piebald song.
I like Fear and Loathing. It's never been my favorite, and it never will be my favorite, but I think it's different, and it gives a little bit of a texture and rhythmic variation to the record that I think really helps the record overall to be a classic that it is. It keeps it from being one note. It still has those really nice harmonies. It has like the horn part at the end, and
it really works. And yeah, you're right. It gives the record a different texture. It makes the album a little more dynamic because, like, if you do take those slower moments out of the record, it can be one note. Like, there's some songs on the back half of the album that, like, if you piled all of those like next to the first 3 tracks on the record, you'd be like, this is pretty samey. But thankfully, they chop it up in a way that the sequencing works so well on this record.
I think also what really helps too, like Fear and Loathing on Cape Cod and Long Nights even are like, they're relatively softer because they're not quite as hard and high energy, you know, for the whole run of the song, but they still have those buildups. They still have pretty big dynamic range. And even songs like King of the Road starts off with that kick-ass riff, and then the first verse is the soft verse. Like, they do those kinds of things throughout the record, where even like a song that's pretty up the whole time, at least in your memory, like what sticks out to you, the chorus of it and the hook of it, like, will have really nice sense of dynamics throughout. And I think that the record overall has those senses of dynamics, and like Long Nights and Fear and Loathing being kind of cool down, softer songs, they're not that soft. Like,
right.
They're not fully acoustic from beginning to end or anything.
Yeah. Which, it's going to get worse before it gets better. That's acoustic song all the way through, I think, right? Like, there's some other instruments in there, but it's mostly acoustic song.
Yeah, that's the one of the few true soft songs on the record.
Yeah. Though it's a great song though. Like, I don't dislike it in any way, and it doesn't kill the record by being slow. You're right. They just, even the way they write their songs, there's soft parts. There's a soft chorus on Karate Chops for Everyone But Us. You know, that's got hand claps and acoustic guitars in there too. There's hand claps in the Stalker too, with some synths. And I think that comes from the scene that they're from, and them being a hardcore band, and then like shifting into that post-hardcore sound for the first 2 records. Like, those records are dynamic, and they have soft parts, they have heavy parts, you know. And so I think they took that type of songwriting and applied it to a more pop friendly feel. Like, there are more like distinct choruses on this than maybe the previous 2 records have. So there's some really Grace Kelly, Wings, great song. But yeah, they they still kind of structured it like they structured their old songs, but yeah, just with like big hooky parts. It's weird that The Stalker is like, that's a show favorite, and like it's a tongue-in-cheek song about being a stalker, which I guess maybe wouldn't get written today, but like listening back at it, you're like, I mean, we know what the joke is, you know, but they still play it live, so I mean, clearly it hasn't aged that poorly.
No, I think the intention is very clear of what it's about.
I do think "Look, I Just Don't Like You" sounds a lot like The Stalker, though. Like they feel like are they the same song? Why'd you put them next to each other?
Well, I really like that kind of sequencing. It's something I see a lot on a lot of classic country records, where it'll be like, here's a song, and then here's a song that's like the same thing, but if you inverted the lyrics, it's like, this is the sad drinking song, this is the fun drinking song. Those kinds of song pairings happen a lot. So I really like that they did that, because I look at Just Don't Like You, it sounds like the more realistic shitty dude.
Yeah.
Like The Stalker is like, you're identifying this bad guy, and then the guy in Look, I Just Don't Like You is someone that you might end up relating to, and you have to check yourself.
And they do close it off with Sex Sells and Unfortunately I'm Buying, which has like a big crescendo, like the sax is back on this song, and it's just it has like a big ending to this record, and it's like a great way for this album to close out.
Oh yeah, the harmonized trumpet, climax of the record is wild.
Because so many bands, for like the climax of the record, or at least like the end of the album, I guess. I mean, some artists, like the climax is the second to last song, and then the final track is the denouement. But they just decided to go out on the high note of this record instead of doing like, and here's our like acoustic song to end the whole thing, you know, that used to be a thing really bad in the 2000s. It was like every album ended with an acoustic song at the end. But yeah, man, it's just a brilliant record, like front to back, just an excellent album that they couldn't really top. So they followed up with All Ears, All Eyes, All the Time, and they lean more into the piano. The production is very much the same, slick production values, and it kind of sounds like they tried to do this record again on that album, and they didn't quite nail it. Accidental Gentleman came out after that. I think Accidental Gentleman is better than All Eyes, All Ears.
I don't think that's the consensus.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All Eyes, All Ears. So today I listened to this record, and then I listened to both albums on either side. And so I listened to If It Weren't for Venetian Blinds, and I listened to All Eyes, All Ears. And to me, All Eyes, All Ears just feels like they're trying to do We're the Only Friends We Have again with less success. Venetian Blinds, listening to that, you can be like, oh, I see where they're going.
Yeah.
Like it's more raw. It's a little heavier in places. They're not quite there yet, but you can see the trajectory they were going to take to get to this album. And it's clearly their discography is a peak. Like they build up to this. I mean, I guess it depends on how much you like When Life Hands You Lemons over Venetian Blinds. Some people say that was their better record of the two. I don't know. I don't really have a preference in the two. I think they're equally good, but I think they peaked with this album, and the come down was good. I think they have a great discography. I think their 5 LPs are great. They have a lot of other like extra stuff that I'm not really super familiar with, EPs and stuff, singles. But LP wise, I think they have a great run. Not a perfect discography, but definitely solid all the way through.
For what Piebald does as a band, genre wise, the bands that I have always associated them with, they very much had the potential to be just that one record band. Like,
yeah,
this could have been, that's the only one I ever listened to, but I do remember listening to All Eyes, All Ears, All Eyes a lot in college, and just kind of dropping off after a while of not really going back to it, and just being, when I'm in the mood for Piebald, reaching for this one. But having the box set of the first 3 records has helped the first 2 records in their discography being more familiar to me and coming to appreciate a lot of the things about them, because they feel Venetian Blinds, as much as it's getting there in terms of hooks, and there is certainly like that riffiness is still on We Are the Only Friends We Have, it still feels like a Braid style band, emo band. And this record is something else. Like, it is really light years beyond emo, and I really have such a hard time even properly classifying it as strictly an emo record. But I don't know what else to call it.
I mean, I
It
guess,
is, and I like to call it an emo record because I like to have a record that I don't immediately think of Kinsella worship, in that genre. And I think Piebald is part of really a last wave of bands doing a style of emo that was very common throughout the 90s. And it ultimately culminates into whatever, the pop Fall Out Boy, version of emo. Like, from the Get Ups Kids, from Jimmy Eat World even, it's just funny because you could song for song rewrite this record today and put it out, and everyone would just call it a power pop record.
yeah. I mean, you could call this an indie rock record, and I think you could get away with it too. Like, from that time period too.
Yeah.
It is funny that they're like, emo is the genre that they fit in. I don't know if that was just purely like time and place is the closest thing to what's going on. They're on the Warped Tours, Yeah, there's some similarities to Motion City Soundtrack, Get Up Kids, and Jimmy Eat World in there too. So yeah, I guess it makes sense. I don't know what else you would have called it. I think what people are calling indie rock in the 2000s too might people being like Death Cab, which some people call Death Cab emo too. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you looked at indie rock in 2002, it would be Wilco.
Yeah.
Broken Social Scene.
Okay, so yeah, they don't really fit in with what was being called indie rock at the time.
That very art rocky
Mm-hmm.
approach to Bright Eyes, if you go into the folk side of it. Rilo Kiley. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense. You would call it indie rock now, but probably not in 2002. Maybe it is. It's just the comparison. You wouldn't call them like a straight up punk band either, because punk was still very like fat epithet plus orgcore. Like that's kind of, and they don't really fit into either one of those sonically. They appealed to the orgcore crowd. That tended to be the people who found them later. There was an interview when they reunited in 2016 where someone asked, do you think Piebald got bigger after you broke up? And I think they did. I think this was a case of like Bear versus Shark, where like they toured everywhere, they played everywhere, but they didn't really get at their peak until after they broke up, and they couldn't really like capitalize on it.
Yeah. People started doing covers from this record. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because 2002 is when this record came out. The internet is, people have the internet now, and they're using message boards and Napster and stuff like that, but it's still like not as easy. Like computers are still kind of slow. Napster takes a while to download. I think faster internet speeds and people really being able to find them more after they broke up is kind of what grew that audience. And the people who are like, I missed out, that crowd, that's a thing too. Just the fact that people missed out on a band can make them bigger, like with Jawbreaker,
And they went to Sidewind Dummy.
Yeah.
Who 2004 was when that record came out.
So a pre-Gaslight Anthem Sidewind Dummy.
So Sidewind Dummy is Flogging Molly, The Casualties, Avoid One Thing.
Yeah.
When they're on the label. If they had gone to like a Fueled by Ramen, it would have been huge.
Or a Jade Tree.
Yeah. Yeah, Jade Tree maybe not as much in 2004, but
yeah. Yeah, Fueled by Ramen though, yeah. For sure. And yeah, so Piebald got back together. They did like some one-off stuff, and then they did a tour in 2016 leading up to that Wrecking Ball festival in Atlanta, because they had been asked before to do like big festivals, and they were like, we don't want to just do like a festival. We don't want to just like fly out, do a thing, and go home. Like we'd rather do a tour. We'd like to do strings of shows, lead up to it. So they did that, and then we probably saw them in North Carolina. Do you think it was that year? Or was the year? It was probably the year after, 2017. We would have seen them, because Wrecking Ball was like in September of 2016, and I remember we were like, they should get Piebald for Fest, and then they didn't get Piebald until like the following year, right?
Yeah.
Or did they get him 2 years later? I remember Fest had a string of getting the reunion too late. Did they get Piebald the same year as Jawbreaker? Or was it the year before? I don't know.
I don't remember now.
And I remember when we saw them, they played a lot of songs off this record. They kind of had to. But they also like played nothing off the last 2 records. They just played the first 3.
Yeah.
And I remember that being kind of odd. I was like, that's weird, like that they did that. I think it's just because those records are so piano centric, and it looked like they didn't have a piano player with them on that. Or they didn't bring one with them to play. So maybe they're just like, I don't want to do those songs. I don't know what went into the reasoning behind that. They didn't want to play Oh, the Congestion or Jealous Guy Blues, and I guess you could get away with playing these songs because like the piano's there, but like not necessary to pull the songs off.
Yeah, because the piano on this record is more of an accent.
Yeah,
Or it's like, it's kind of playing the chords. That's it. It's really not doing anything substantial the way that like the guitar parts on this record are. The guitar parts are like distinct riffs that are really important to the song. Who even played the piano?
I don't know.
Travis?
It doesn't. I assume so, but it doesn't really tell you on the liner notes. It doesn't tell you what anybody plays in the liner notes. You have to like I had to look up on Wikipedia to see what instrument they played in the band, but they didn't. They don't say who played keys in the band. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Travis, but because he played. Was Travis lead? Was that what we said? I don't know. They're just both guitarists. I don't know who is considered the lead guitarist.
I mean, Aaron plays the riffs. Yeah. When we saw them live, like Aaron's the one playing the big riffs on every song.
And they did a Christmas EP a couple years later, which is weird because they were asked in 2016. They're like, "So new Piebald music?" And he's like, "I don't know about that." He's like, "I think the pressure is too big, and I don't want to fuck it up. Like it's just very much I don't know if it would be good."
And no one cared about TS in the past haunts.
And I didn't like it. Like I remember being excited because like, hey, Travis got a new band. I'm gonna listen to it, and it's not very good. I don't know. I did not like that band. Very disappointed with that one. So yeah, I'm like, do we want the Piebald Christmas EP? Is not very good either. But like it's a Christmas EP, so like who expected it to be, you know? Which they got asked about that whenever. They like, so why a Christmas EP? He's like, because there's no pressure. Like nobody cares if a Christmas thing isn't very good. He's just like, it's easy to write Christmas songs. And with TS in the Past Haunts and with the Christmas EP, I don't think I want a new Piebald record. I don't think I would like it very much.
Very high risk. I mean, that it could flop, but
I mean, I guess what is a band just going around playing the hits forever? I don't know.
Why not?
They're not like a full-time touring band.
Yeah. I assume you all have day jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. New Piebald music could be okay. It's hard to say if it would be good or not. Because then it wouldn't fall entirely on Travis. And TS in the Past Haunts, I mean, it was his solo project. So.
Yeah, I mean, it had a band, but yeah.
Piebald, you have the input of everyone else. Because you listen to Piebald records, and like those guitar riffs are so distinct. Like Travis might have written a lot of the songs in terms of like chords and lyrics, but like those guitar riffs then just are taking it to another level. And a lot of it just seems like it could be like, hey, I got this riff. You want to do anything with it? And then he's like, okay, yeah, these are the chords. Okay, yeah. Like you have that collaboration between the two of them. At least 2 people in the band, and then I assumed the drums and bass had, a fair amount of input on, in terms of dynamics and rhythm and song structure. I don't know. There's enough people working on it. It could potentially be better, especially if it's not a Christmas record where they're like, oh yeah, I don't have to try. If it's, they're putting their name on it and it's a proper album, I feel like there's the possibility they could rise to an occasion, but I don't need them to either. If they don't want to, if they don't feel like they can live up to it, they shouldn't.
Yeah,
they shouldn't do it. Yeah,
I mean, we got 6 records from them. No, 5 records from them, and then like a bunch of extra stuff. So there's enough there. And it's been a couple years since I've seen them. If they came through, I don't know if I would be like, oh, I gotta get my tickets right away type thing. Probably not. I don't know how hard I would try to go see them now that I've seen them twice.
I've seen them twice, and I don't think that the set list is going to be substantially different.
Right.
It would be kind of like a wait and see.
They did do a We Are the Only Friends tour, an album tour. I'd consider that. Those are hit or miss, those full album
Yeah.
Sometimes they're great, sometimes not. I think it depends on the record, depends on the band, depends on how much they've changed over the years too. So yeah, I guess I would prefer like a full, little bit of everything set instead of just the album set. But yeah, I don't know. This is an all-timer for me. 5 stars.
Yeah.
6 in the Tokyo Dome for sure.
It has not lost any of its power. I really, really still love this record. I think it is a keeper for sure. I should probably come back to you more often.
Yeah. I mean, it's really good. I know I did one of the first 2 on a starting 5, I think, when we were still doing that show. When we realized we're burning through selections by doing this. Dropping that. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It's great. All-timer. 100%. 1001 to hear before you die, for sure. I'm doing a new thing now where I'm trying to, instead of doing 1001 albums, because that's too hard, I'm thinking of making a like all-time artist list. Like just for me. Just my personal all-time artist list. I don't know. I just started the 8s. We'll see how far I get. Might get bored, but always making lists that take too much time.
Yeah, you can't do it. I don't think anybody should do 1001
Alone.
I've tried it, and I've tried too many different approaches to it. And I don't know what the sweet spot is, what the right number is for making a best albums of all time list. Because I could probably do 100. And 100 would give you enough of a limitation to make it challenging. But then when you have that limitation of like, okay, I got to pick 100. They got to be the 100 best. You're going to defer to probably a lot of stuff that you think is just really, really important.
That's why I think an artist list is probably easier for me to compile, because the weight is off. Like, which album do I select? And just no, all of them by the artist.
Yeah. Doing an artist list is interesting too, because then you have the like, well, this artist is here because they have a couple of records that are absolutely incredible, but maybe their whole discography is not perfect. And then you have other artists where it's like they don't have a lot of real big peaks, but they're just so consistent.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think 200, 250 could be interesting, because then you can sneak in kind of like, oh, here's something pretty obscure.
I'm just thinking of my personal list. Like I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about. This is just for me anyway. You know.
I just want to look at the list.
Yeah, I like those.
Yeah.
These are mine.
Good list.
Love a list. Don't like a bad list. Predictable. Same stuff as every list.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do 5x5s every week because I think people want to see what 15 country and jazz records I listened to that week. I just do it because I like looking at them.
Yeah. For me. That one's for me.
Like I think the album covers look nice when they're in a little grid together.
Well, I think that'll do it. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you enjoy Piebald. This is a fun one for us. And you can follow us on all forms of social media at PunkLottoPod, all the podcasting apps, YouTube. We have a voicemail line, 202-688-PUNK. We have an email address, punklotopod@gmail.com. So many ways to get in touch with us. Patreon.com/punklotopod, $1 and $10 tiers. I think I figured out what we could do for a $5 tier in the future that doesn't add a lot more work on our plate. So more to come on that. But thank you all so much, and we will talk to you next time.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.